Hey everybody, Flash Weather AI Meteorologist Dave Downey here. Friday, August 8th. Not a whole lot going on in the tropics right now, but that is going to change over the next week or two. Let's dive into our kind of early to mid-season hurricane season update and why the Atlantic could ramp up pretty fast over the next week to 10 days. Let's go over where we are right now. You saw the satellite behind me in the first kind of opening shot there. Not a whole lot. You've got a 10% area of development there off the Carolina coast. This is nothing to worry about. About a 50-50 shot here with this system. Just going to be a fish storm. We had Dexter here across the northeastern Atlantic, or I guess northeast of all these areas. But the point is here, nothing is pertinent. Nothing is going to threaten land over the next week at all, which is good news. Here's the thing, though. We are entering what we'll call the meat and potatoes of the Atlantic hurricane season. Here we are right there, right before the big roller coaster climb up the mountain to September 10th. September 10th is the climatological peak of hurricane season where you see the most amount of activity in the Atlantic Ocean. And we are right on the cusp of a big upswing, at least historical upswing, in activity. Here's the satellite again. Not a whole lot going on. Lots of dry air out here. Even some Saharan dust you can see moving off the coast of Africa. But we're going to watch this area of showers and thunderstorms across Africa, of course, thousands of miles away from the U.S. But this time of the year, those showers and thunderstorms can move off the Horn of Africa, past the Cape Verde Islands, and eventually can become a tropical storm and eventually a hurricane. So is that going to happen with this patch of showers and thunderstorms? Some of the computer model guidance thinks yes. This is the European ensemble from earlier today, the 0Z run, the earlier overnight run. 50 different models thrown into this ensemble, essentially a probability-based forecast of what could happen in the Atlantic over the next week or two. There's some pretty good agreement with those showers and thunderstorms eventually turning into a tropical wave, then a tropical storm, and then potentially maybe a hurricane as that, we'll call it, as this system gets to about the Leeward Islands by next weekend. There's a few different outcomes here. It's way too soon to know where a potential hurricane could go, whether it be the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America, whatever you want to call it. But how about just the Gulf? Florida, the East Coast, the Northeast, or maybe, like some of these solutions have, just recurving out to sea and just to be a fish storm. It is pretty rare in mid-August for a system to take that path of least resistance to take to the Northeast, because usually you've got the Azores high here, you've got some sort of Bermuda high here, and both of these features act to push the systems from east to west towards the Caribbean, towards the Bahamas, and eventually, potentially, towards the east coast of the United States. There's a lot of factors here at play subseasonally. This gets really into the weeds meteorologically. I'm not going to get too deep into the weeds here. Andy Hazelton, Eric Webb are great follows on X. If you want to go follow them. The MJO entering from phase 1 to phase 2, that always enhances upward motion, the potential development of showers and thunderstorms here in the eastern Atlantic. You've got a convectively coupled Kelvin wave and a Rosby wave going on there too. So you've got all sorts of factors enhancing rising air, enhancing shower and thunderstorm vertical development that could eventually turn into a tropical cyclone as it heads from east to west. There's been a lot of conjecture out there that, hey, if the Atlantic can't produce a Cape Verde hurricane based on these conditions, it may be not the year for a Cape Verde hurricane for African easterly waves. We call these batches of showers and thunderstorms as they push into the Atlantic. It's not a lock, though. There's something we already talked about. It's all the dry air here in play here between the Azores and the Cape Verde Islands that could hinder or slow development through next weekend. So here we go. Lots of moisture, lots of humidity, lots of rain, lots of clouds as this system gradually organizes itself heading west. But you see these batches of dry air north and south of the system here. That is what's going to slow development, at least at first. What that's unfortunately going to do is likely lead this system to continue to go east to west, and it can't recurve until it gains some strength and eventually finds a gap in the ridge to escape northward. So that's the main hindering factor right now, is as this system gets developed, see the reds, the greens there, this is relative humidity, mid-level relative humidity, there's the system there. Once it gets to the Leeward Islands, if it gets to about this point, and it is a tropical storm, there is a very high likelihood that it will turn into a hurricane and will impact land at some point, because the conditions in the southwestern Atlantic are primed for development. Extremely high ocean temperatures, low wind shear, high vertical instability. We do not want this system to look like this by next weekend. Then the question would be, okay, let's say we have a tropical storm or a hurricane here north of the Leeward Islands, so about 1,000 miles away from making a quote-unquote landfall at this point. Would it go west towards the Caribbean? Would it go maybe towards Florida? Would it go towards the Carolinas, further to the northeast, or out to sea? Those are kind of the four. That's four, right? 4 arrows? 1, 2. That's 5 arrows. Can't count. Those are the 5 solutions we could see if you get a tropical storm or a hurricane here by next weekend. You've got a negative PNA here. What that means is you've got a ridge across the Alaskan Aleutian Islands, a dip in the trough here, there's the trough, and some sort of a ridge here. There's the ridge really developing by next weekend. There's a big-time ridge. There's your trough. Then by the following week, this ridge does retrograde back to the west. If it does do that, that will allow for some uncertainty in the forecast. Andy Hazelton, great Twitter, X-follow, has done some research on southeast Florida landfalling hurricanes in the past. I'm not going to directly post his work here. You can go view it. What he has found is that when you have a high pressure system here across eastern Canada, the northeast, that is going to make these storms go more east to west and eventually strike Florida. This is not the setup you want. A trough in the west, a ridge in the east. That almost guarantees some sort of United States landfall, whether it's the Carolinas, the Southeast, or Florida. We are over 2 weeks away from a potential landfall, but we want to stay on guard. We want to make sure you guys know this ahead of time, and of course, we're going to provide updates as they become necessary. All this is pretty ironic. Yesterday, NOAA came out with an updated hurricane season outlook. They still think about a 50-50 shot of above normal activity, just a 15% chance of below normal activity, but it only takes one system to cause lifelong impacts for some folks. So, kind of summarizing it all up here, we're really entering the red zone. We're inside the 20-yard line, or about to be inside the 20-yard line for potential tropical development in the Atlantic over the next couple of weeks. We talked about the MJO, the Kelvin wave, the Rosby wave, all aligning together. If the Atlantic can't produce a main development region hurricane now, will it this month or next month? This is the type of situation where we usually see a Cape Verde type hurricane this time of the year, but track impact way too unknown this far out over 2 weeks. We have no idea. We just know that the conditions are favorable for a potential system. We're going to have live streaming coverage for every storm this hurricane season, from birth to death, especially during landfall, whether it's in the U.S., the Caribbean, anywhere close by. Download the Flash Weather AI mobile app. Updates just out today. Lightning prediction technology there in the mobile app. Free to download right now. And we'll, of course, have more consistent updates this weekend heading into next week. And as I mentioned, it can be above average, can be below average. It doesn't matter. It only takes one storm. I saw that firsthand with Hurricane Helene in the North Carolina mountains last year to change lives and change landscapes, really, forever. We'll be here all hurricane season long. This is the future of severe weather prediction and tropical cyclone prediction. This is Flash Weather AI.